This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your hosts, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Today we have Peter Lohmann on the show today. How are you, Peter?
I'm doing well, Joni. It's exciting to be here.
Well, we are super excited to have you on the show today. So just a quick bio on Peter. So Peter is the co-founder and CEO of RL Property Management, a residential property management company located in Columbus, Ohio. RL manages over 650 units together with his business partner. Peter also owns a handful of rental units as well as a small engineering company. Peter received his bachelor's in electrical engineering and spent 5 years as a control systems engineer before co-founding RL Property Management in 2013. He has developed the following for his property management process and systems expertise. He loves helping other property management companies succeed with systems and co-founded a private community for PM owners called Crane. Peter also hosts a property management podcast and is a co-author of the 2024 PM's Trends Report. Peter, I've actually been keeping my eye on you for a while now, and I'm like, I need to get Peter on the show. So again, thank you for joining us. And I kind of want to start off, from engineering to property management. How did that all get started?
Yeah, so it got started because my business partner and I, who's also an engineer, we're working as engineers, as our kind of day job, if you will. And we were buying up single family rentals, sort of using the salary from our engineering jobs. Of course, at the time I wasn't married. I had no kids. So very low lifestyle expenses. So he and I would buy like one single family rental a year. And we were just self-managing them at that time. This was like right out of college for me.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so we decided after a few years that we really liked real estate and rental properties, and we were tired of working for other people. We kind of wanted to do our own thing, own our own business. So we looked into what it would take to start a property management company here in Ohio and got started on getting our real estate license. And then in 2013, I quit my engineering job and started RL Property Management. At the time, we had no units, no clients, no professional property management experience at all. We just had like our 4 or 5 properties that we owned at that time. So just been grinding ever since. My business partner came on board full time about a year later. Prior to that, he was helping out nights and weekends. And so for many years there, it was just 100% focused on growing the management company. And today we manage around just a hair under 700 doors. And then in the last few years, I started to get more involved in the broader industry. And, maybe we'll talk about some of that. But that's kind of my journey from engineer to property manager.
Awesome. Well, you and Shawn actually have a lot in common. Shawn started off in mechanical engineering, and
oh, nice.
But didn't make it actually out of that. He decided to go for business, and so we went and graduated with a business degree.
I should have just finished. Just my senior year, I changed to business. I should have just got my. But then I maybe would have had a plan B, and it wouldn't have worked out. So, but no, tell us about some of the earlier challenges in your career that in the PM space that you faced, and kind of how did you overcome those? I know you're really great on systems and all that, so maybe that aspect of it, but talk about some of the early challenges and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, so in those early days, when we started, it was just me in my apartment. We didn't even have an office. And so trying to figure out how to get those first few clients to sign up and start paying the monthly management fee. And back then, I feel like we were charging, it was probably like $70 a month or something. And I remember thinking at that time, well, shoot, even if we got 10 clients, which seemed impossible, that would only be $700 a month in revenue. How is this ever going to turn into a real business that's going to be able to support me, let alone any employees? Mm-hmm. I vividly remember just being pretty scared about that. Mm-hmm. But I had faith that somehow it would work out. And if it didn't, I could always go back and, go back into engineering. Yeah. So just kept plugging away. I was really active on BiggerPockets. I would go to the real estate investor meetup groups around town. I didn't know anything about sales. I didn't know anything about marketing. I didn't know anything about management. I had never managed a single team member before. So it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of reading, a lot of listening to podcasts, and just trying to figure out, how do you own and run a business? And then how do you do all the property management stuff at scale? I mean, I knew about how to sign leases and a couple of the basics just from managing our own rentals, but it's a lot different. As you all know, when you're managing hundreds of doors and you've got to deal with your state's trust accounting compliance requirements and all the software, and it's just a lot. So those are some of the challenges back then. I hadn't worked at a real estate office or a property management company, so I had no idea and back then I didn't know about NARPM either. I didn't discover NARPM until like 2016. So it was just kind of the blind leading the blind, and we were figuring it out.
Yeah. What would you say, in your opinion, there's nothing wrong with being at like 80, 100 doors, but we know a lot of companies or kind of consult with a lot of companies that are, it's a single owner operator, 80, 100 doors, really bad, they're doing everything and they're just struggling to pay the bills. What does it take to get over, in your opinion, that hump and get to the, I don't know, 250, 300, start hiring, more staff, start really growing? In your experience, what did it take to do that?
Yeah, I definitely remember that 80 to 100 door mark. And
it's like a bad job.
Biggest thing what's that?
It's like a bad job, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. It is. And the thing that helped me get past that, I hired a coach at that time, like a business coach.
Yeah.
And he really pushed me to hire somebody, like just someone to help out, like an admin assistant, essentially. He pushed me to hire that person way sooner than I would have on my own. He was explaining to me, listen, you need to get someone who can be there to answer the phones and deal with the mail and deal with walk-ins and handle some of these low value tasks like showings, so that you can focus on growing your business
right.
and some of the more high value tasks. And like, I really understood that intellectually. I'm big on like reading about business and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense intellectually, but I can barely afford my own salary. And if we hire somebody now, we're actually going to start losing money every month. So it was a real leap of faith to be able to do that. And it took another person who I respected pushing me to get me to do that. Once I did do that, it was obviously the right decision, freed up my time and mental energy to focus on sales and marketing and bringing in new customers and making the experience better for our existing customers so they would stick around and refer their friends. So there's definitely something really important there around getting stuff off your plate if you want to break past that 7,500, 125 door barrier. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get there just by working harder. That's what got you where you are now, and that's awesome and very admirable. But at a certain point, you have to sort of unlearn what you've learned about working hard being like hard linked to success. Working hard is awesome and it take you very far, but you need to learn about leverage if you want to grow like a true company and not just, like you said, a bad job. So
yeah, a lot of property management, just business owners in general, are stuck on that. Like they're stuck on, how do I get out of in the weeds type of thing. Like you as a coach, you coach a lot of PMs. Like, how do you get them to think differently?
I ask a lot of questions, and I interrogate the foundations of their current mindset. So, you could tell somebody, well, you just need to hire somebody, and they're going to file that away with 100 other things that people are telling them that they need to do.
Right.
In order to really, in order to give someone advice that's going to be relevant for them and speak to what their challenges really are, you have to get a really deep understanding of what's led them to where they are now and what beliefs are supporting their current behaviors. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a Socratic method of like, okay, so, what's holding you back right now? Well, I don't have time to get back to these clients when they call. And by the time I call back, you're like, okay, so what's taking up your time? And you sort of like step by step, you sort of lead them almost down their own path to conclusions rather than just prescriptively telling them like, well, you need to do this next.
Right.
So I think that's how I approach it, is learn more about their specific situation, because there's some things that you can say sort of from on high as like general advice, but a lot of times it's the specific situation that's kind of holding them back. And you do need to learn more about what's going into that before you can give advice.
Nice.
Love that.
What, explaining some of the things that you've implemented in your property management company that makes you guys different than your competition. What separates you from other management companies?
Yeah, a couple things that we do. Probably the most notable being that we don't charge a leasing fee. So, obviously most property managers charge, 1 month's rent or half month's rent or at least a few $100s, to find and place a new tenant in the property. For various reasons, we've never charged that fee. We kind of make it part of our sales pitch. This idea about aligning our incentives with the property owner so that our incentive is to find a great tenant and keep them in the property for as long as possible, because we have to incur the cost of leasing if the tenant moves out. And that's when the owner makes the most money too, is getting a great tenant, keeping them in the property long term. So that's kind of been our claim to fame locally, is no leasing fees, and we've held to that for 12 years. A couple other things that we do is we do quarterly inspections on all the properties that we manage. And that's something, again, we've done it from the beginning, and so we were able to scale up that program as we went. And our property owners really appreciate knowing that someone from our company is inside their home, 3-4 times a year, changing the filter, checking all the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, just making sure that the place isn't getting trashed or abandoned or 20 people moved in or something like that. So I would say those are like the two main differences for us.
Yeah. Do you feel like that some of those things builds trust and transparency with your clients, or is there other things you do to? It seems like the minute you lose your trust with the client in property management, it's kind of a downhill slope after that. But yeah. Is there things that you do to foster that trust and transparency in your company?
Yeah, the trust factor is huge. The quarterly inspections help the property owner trust the resident and trust sort of our tenant screening. In terms of that trust between us and the property owner, which is absolutely critical. I mean, you guys know that if that trust is broken,
right,
the relationship is now just sort of a ticking time bomb. You have to cultivate and maintain trust as a fiduciary, right? It's all integral to what we're doing every day as property managers. As an agent acting on behalf of the owner, they have to trust you in the same way that they have to trust their doctor or their CPA, or these fiduciary relationships just go way beyond a commercial transaction. So I would say this is an area that we've been pretty weak on for most of the history of the company. I always had this idea coming out of engineering that, well, if we just get the process right, the owner should leave us alone. If we do the right system and we follow the right procedure, surely this will be obvious to the owner, and they will just inherently trust us as the experts.
Yeah.
And it only took me 11 years or so to figure out that wasn't actually effective, and that we need a different approach to really build genuine relationships with our property owner clients and cultivate that trust. Now, my approach worked for some people. For people that are more analytically oriented, they like that, they get it, they have access to their rental owner portal through Buildium, and we would always get back to them when they had a question. But I think we've taken a much warmer approach here in the last couple of years, as I've finally wised up and figured out that you have to treat each client like, they're seeking a relationship with not just RL Property Management as a business, but they want to feel that someone specific who they know their name and have their phone number is genuinely looking out for their property. And if they call that person, they can get a straight answer on what's happening rather than just trusting the system to be doing the right thing at all times. There's kind of like a subtle difference there, but pursuing that sort of philosophy has really helped us drive down our churn and have a much warmer relationship with our property owner clients.
That's great. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and go to more on the leadership side. You had made a comment earlier that you basically had to learn everything, right? Trial and error. Very much like us, we didn't have a background in management or building teams and leadership. And so talk a little bit about that. What qualities do you believe are essential for success in property management? Let's start there.
Yeah, so just like we talked about trust between you and the property owner, there needs to be a genuine trust between you and the people that work for you. It has to go both ways. And so I've always been really big on trust by default. So everyone who comes to work for me or work for RL Property Management, we really take the approach that from the beginning, we trust them to do the right thing. We trust them to be honest. We trust that they're going to get their work done. So our culture is very much results oriented. We're not carefully tracking everyone's time. I don't care when people clock in and clock out. What I care about is, did you get the job done and was it done right? And whether you have to leave at lunch or go do a dentist appointment or deal with your kid, I don't care. I don't even want to know. I'm bored by that information. I'm excited about the information about what's going on with your work and our clients. So that's sort of my leadership style. And I think what I've learned over the years more generally about leadership and management is the company that you have now is a direct reflection of your skills as a leader and as a business owner.
100%.
The sooner you come to terms with that and understand that there's no one else to blame, don't blame the market, don't blame your clients, don't blame your team members, don't blame your vendors or your tenants. Blame yourself if your company isn't where you want it to be. That approach is going to take you very far because it's useful and practical. So like when our company was around 300 doors, that was because I had the skills of a 300 door business owner. And if I wanted to be a 700 door business owner, I was going to have to level up my skills as a business owner, not really as a property manager, but as a business owner and as a leader and a manager, in order to get the company to that door count.
Yeah.
If you enter into it with that mindset, you're going to go super far because you're going to turn into a super high agency person who takes accountability for what's happening at the things that they're involved in. And your team is going to see that. And your team is going to turn into a group of people who's excited to deliver results for you and excited about winning and succeeding because they see that when the company wins, you're going to give them credit. And when the company struggles and doesn't grow in the way that everyone wants, you're going to own that as the owner. And that's what I've done. So I think when I run into, business owners of any type of business, not just property management, and they start whining about anything, tariffs, economy, team,
they can't keep
the
people,
local laws,
right.
whatever it is. I'm like, you're not going far with that. It's just, what are you going to do? You're going to hold back the ocean. I mean, you gotta figure out what are the things that I can control and let me work on those.
Yeah.
Love that.
It's a little painful at times though. And challenge, looking at yourself and being vulnerable and
absolutely.
So, because I 100%, yeah, every there's Joni and I have seen the different levels, and it's always been every time we looked at why can't we cross this ceiling, it's always like it comes back to her and I just didn't have the skill set or didn't have the right people, didn't hire the right people that were bigger or smarter or
we needed to level up ourselves, like you talked about, right?
Yep.
So, but one of the reasons,
and part of that is your hiring ability, right?
Yeah.
So, you talked about your team, like who hired those people, right?
Exactly.
So
100%. Yeah.
You can't blame them for being who they are. Like, so yeah.
Or we've done way too many times. We've we've kept people
for way too long.
That we shouldn't have.
Yeah.
And that's on us, because it's difficult to have those difficult conversations. So, but
everyone has to learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met a single business owner who heard someone say, you really need to let people go when it's obvious that it isn't working out. Keeping them around isn't doing them any favors, and it's not doing you any favors. Mm-hmm. Every new business owner is like, yeah, that makes sense. I'll do that. And then when it comes to like their
easier said than done,
you don't do it, and then it's horrible, and then you learn it, and you're like, oh, that's what they were talking about. Now I've learned it. It's like this one thing you just can't learn it by hearing it. You have to experience it.
Yep.
Yeah, and those have been very painful for us along the way. But one reason I really wanted you on the show and excited to have you was you have done a lot of research, a lot of put together some really cool reports on the broader PM industry, and so I wanted to get into some of the things you're seeing, some of the changes, and maybe some of the trends. So I guess start off with just in the property management industry, what have you seen change over those 13 years you've been in business? And then maybe speak to some of the trends you're currently seeing in our industry.
Yeah. So I think, going back 13 years, when we got started, there were hardly any vendors in the space. So when you walk the halls of an ARPM conference right now, you see over 100 vendors at some of the larger conferences.
I think there's more vendors than there are sometimes, but that's my...
There were very few, when we got started. And even if there were a bunch, I wouldn't have known about it because I hadn't, discovered NARPM, and I didn't realize that there was actually like a little industry that had, popped up to support what we were doing as third-party managers. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of other changes, I don't want to just repeat all the obvious ones about technology and AI. I think what I've really started to see here in the last few years is that as an industry, I feel that we're learning faster and we are sharing knowledge and leveling up together at a more rapid pace than I saw even in the early days of when I became involved with NARPM. One of the things that we're really great about as an industry is sharing and collaborating and just talking amongst each other about what's working and not working. When I talk to some of my other business owner friends from different industries, they're shocked at how open this industry is and sort of collaborative and friendly. And I really like that we are leveraging that as an industry to move the state of the art forward faster. I love how I'm seeing some of these newsletters pop up and people are posting on LinkedIn and all of these podcasts where people are coming on and sharing stuff and these communities that have, started to show up. That's just going to make us all better faster. So rather than, every property manager reinventing the wheel about how to deal with some specific tenant situation or how to find owners or how to integrate technology, we all share that knowledge. And now collectively as an industry, we can focus on bigger, better, more exciting things like how do we deal with the regulations that are coming through and how do we make like the one piece of technology that's going to solve all of our problems, and how do we develop great policies that really work for owners and tenants rather than everyone just figuring out like, well, what's the clause in my lease for if the tenant moves out before the end? It's like, let's not all figure that out for the first time ourselves. Yeah. So I would say that's the change that sticks out to me as I reflect on my time in the industry. Yeah. In terms of the reports and some of the research that I've involved in quite recently, Jordan Muela and I, the co-founder of Lead Simple, got together late last year and commissioned a study with Harris Poll to talk to property owners who own rental property. So we had Harris Poll contact over 750 rental owners. About half of them were working with a property manager and about half of them weren't. And we had Harris Poll ask them dozens of questions about property management and real estate investing and what do you look for in a property manager? How do you want to be communicated with by your property manager? Why did you leave your property manager? What would make you consider hiring a property manager? So we really just felt like there was a need for a current perspective on all of our collective clients. We all get an intuition and a sense of that from working with clients every day, but what we don't really end up hearing from is the people who aren't working with a property manager, and why not. So this was a really fun piece of research to put together, and it's informed already some changes in my company and how we deal with customers. And so yeah, and it's free. You can download it if you want to check it out.
Is there something that stood out in that report to you that maybe you weren't expecting, or?
Yeah, the biggest thing that really jumped out to me was that property owners today, of all ages, really want to communicate with their property manager by phone. That surprised me. I thought for sure that millennials and younger especially would really, not prefer phone. They would want to chat over email or use a portal or something like that. But it was consistent across all ages and all demographics that, and not only do they want to talk to us by phone, their expectations for response time are aggressive. So I forget the exact statistic, but it's something like 70 to 80% of our clients expect to hear back from us within a few hours.
Yeah.
If they reach out, and they really want to hear back from us by phone. So that was a big surprise for me, and it's something that I took back to my company right away. Even before we released the research, because I'm the one that commissioned it, I was able to take that right into my company and say, all right, hot off the press. The phone calls, the survey was done last week, and this week we're going to start making a renewed focus on the phones and getting back to clients by phone, and then following up with an email and just saying, hey, here's what we discussed by phone. So glad we were able to connect. Just as a reminder, we're going to be doing this, and you've agreed to provide this piece of information, blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a really effective way to communicate with property owners.
That was my golden nugget for today's podcast. So thank you, Peter. And if anybody's listening to this, that is what you should be doing. So, Peter, I know that you co-founded the private community for PM owners called Crane, which I'm going to be honest with you, I have a little FOMO. I'm like, what? I'm not involved in this? What is going on here? So talk a little bit about Crane and what you've created there.
Yeah, Wolfgang Krosky and I co-founded Crane late 2023. So it's been about 18 months. And we set it up for experienced property management business owners and operators who really want to take things to the next level. So it's not a community for somebody who's starting out, or, like you were talking about earlier, somebody who's just trying to get over that 100-door hump. This is really more for people who are a little bit further along and are sensing that they now have some new roadblocks and some new plateaus, and they want to network with other property managers who are either at their same stage or much further along. So I think the average door count inside Crane is in the 600 or 700s, and we have, I think, 15 or 20 people inside Crane with over 1,000 doors under management. So the community has an online component and an offline component. We have a private community online. It's through a platform called Circle, which is kind of like Slack, where you can chat and post and share stuff with other Crane members 24/7. And then we also do offline events. So we do real world meetups at some of the NARPM conferences. And then we also do Crane dinners around the U.S. and major metro areas where we have any kind of density of Crane members. We just crossed about 180 members when we did our latest membership drive here last month. And so it's just been a really fun way to, again, speed up that learning and sharing as an industry and bring together a bunch of people who are really passionate about leveling up. And really our core focus at Crane is helping property management business owners and operators get time freedom. There's a lot of focus in the industry about growth, and there's a lot of focus about profitability. We've got some great vendors who can help you do that. But we saw a need for some way to help people get back their time. So I famously take a month off. So the month of June, which is coming up here, I take the full month off every year. I do a full disconnect, no email, no phone call. I don't go to the office. And it's some of the most productive time actually for me as a leader. Come back from that time away with some of my best ideas, refreshed, recharged, And frankly, that's kind of like one of the perks of being a business owner is, in theory, you should be able to, take vacations.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
We facilitate inside crane, sort of a track that you can go along in order to be able to do that too. And so I'm really proud of some of our crane members. Some of the most rewarding parts of my professional career have been watching crane members come into the community, learn from the community, and then go take a 1 week or 2 week or 4 week crane break. That's what we call it. And then come back and they post like a video talking about their time away and how rewarding it was and how much time they got to spend with their family and how their team really stepped up while they were gone and how they would have never had the confidence to be able to do that if it wasn't for crane. It makes my week whenever I see one of those posts, because it just feels so great to be able to help another PM business owner experience that for the first time.
That is pretty cool. So Shawn and I actually took, we've been doing this now for probably 5 years or so, taking a whole month off in the summer just to be with our kids.
Yeah.
But when we first did it, we were like, this is super weird. Like, we're not, what do you mean? There's no emails, no phones. You're totally unplugged. Like, what are we going to do? So figuring that piece out was super
early
awkward.
Pioneers on the crane break. You were doing it early.
Yeah, it was, but we learned, because the first time we did it, we tried to we were going somewhere every week, and it was, by the time it was over, we were so exhausted. We're like, this is way too much.
I did that too. Yeah.
And then the second time we're like, okay, we're just gonna stay at the same place the whole month, and that was a lot better. So and it was just more calm and it was more relaxing. But Peter, if you could go back to your when you were in your early 20s and give yourself some key advice, what would you tell your early self?
That's a good one. Early 20s. Let's see. Yeah. I would probably say back then to myself to be a little more patient with myself. And I would also tell myself that some of the best, a lot of the work that you do early in your career and the relationships that you build, they're so foundational to what comes later, and they compound in a way that you could never imagine. Yeah. So some of the people that I got to know really early in my property management career, some of the things that I did, some of the hard things that I did really early in my career are paying immense dividends for me now, almost 15 years into it. And that wasn't obvious at the time. So during that time period, I was feeling like this is a lot of work. And is this ever going to get easier? Am I ever going to start making, real money? So I think if I could go back, I would tell myself, relax, you're on the right path. It's hard. It's supposed to be hard.
Right.
This is how it is in the beginning. And really treasure and honor those relationships that you're making and building, people you meet at conferences, people you connect with online, and hang around those folks and keep that relationship warm, because the longer you know somebody and the more times you interact with them, the deeper that relationship becomes. And there's some really cool things that start to unlock. Like, for example, the report that I did with Jordan Muela, he and I kind of did that on spec. We basically, on a handshake, we spent $80,000 to commission this survey with Harris Poll, and we said, we'll figure out how to pay for it. We'll get some sponsors, and if not, we'll both chip in for the 40K and call it a day. That type of relationship with somebody doesn't happen in a year or even 2 years. It takes years of getting to know someone before they're willing to go in like that with you and put their name on the line, as being a co-author with you on a serious piece of research, and commit to, sharing it to their networks. So everyone can and should get to experience that type of a relationship and professional sort of fruits of their labor. But it takes longer than you would want and longer than you would think. So I would tell myself to be a little more patient, a little more easy on myself if things weren't popping off after 4 years.
I think that's key advice.
Great advice there, Peter. So one question we ask all of our guests on the show is, what is your next? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5, maybe 10 years?
Great question, man. I really love our industry. So, I'm all in, both hands, both feet, to property management. I've got my newsletter, my podcast, Rain, these reports that I do. I love going to the conferences. So I'm going to be involved in property management. I think what I'm really learning about myself is that I get so much more fulfillment out of helping other property management business owners by, with sharing content and these reports and some of the other things I'm involved with. I get so much more fulfillment from that than I do, frankly, running my management company and dealing with property owners. So I'm going to continue to grow RL Property Management and put leaders in place who do get fulfillment out of that business and those customers, right? So that my time is more freed up to focus on the thing that I get fulfillment from. So 5-10 years down the road, I think it's just going to be more of the same for me, because I really like where I'm at and what I'm up to right now in terms of being involved in the broader industry. So I'd love to be a part of the next wave, whatever that is, that's going to take our industry further, bigger, better, easier, more sane legislation, better tools, better software. I'd love to just somehow have even a small part in any of that.
Awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I can certainly say that we appreciate all that you've done for this industry. Shawn and I don't express that to you because we don't talk to you often, but we do learn from you. So we appreciate all that you've done for this industry.
Yeah. So how, on that same note, how can people learn more about RL Property Management, Crane, and then the Trends Report and all that? Where can they get more information on all of that and more information on you?
Yeah, I have all of that kind of pulled together on my website. So just peterlohmann.com. If you go there, you'll see links for the podcast, for the newsletter. Really, the newsletter would be the thing I would push people to. If you sign up for that newsletter, it just goes out once a week, Friday mornings. That's going to keep you tuned into everything that's going on in the industry, and you can jump off from there.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, we'll have that in the show notes, and we really appreciate you coming on today, and anything we can ever do for you, please let us know. But thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Well, thank you both.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Well, if you like this, please share it. Please subscribe to the newsletter or to the podcast, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya, everyone.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there. Talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.